Hi, welcome to Beyond the Plate. I'm Ali Gonzalez, and I have with me Jake Albion. We decided to start this podcast, and it's going to be based on, things that are inside the food industry, or just, when you think about it, everything we do is centered around food. Whether we're buying processed foods or making it fresh from scratch, we want to be able to talk about topics that people may be aware of or unaware of. My background is as an executive chef for over 38 years, a CEO of culinary schools, now opening up a restaurant in Chicago, Illinois, and just traveling across the United States for the last 25 years and visiting every state and cities, understanding what the needs are and what the problems are. I just got back from the last couple of years traveling to the Northeast, places like Boston, Massachusetts, Maine, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. So you see the consistency of the problems that we're having and that we're facing in the food industry. And Jake here is going to tell you a little bit something about himself. And
Yeah, so I'm Jake. I own a marketing agency called Albion Digital, where we specialize in website SEO and web accessibility. I did get a little bit of food experience rolling pretzels for Annie Ann's down in Southwest Florida. But overall, Ali and I connected more because of, we just started talking about food, reading books, coming across things. I know for me, the big experience that led me on this journey was living in Europe for 3 months where, I was eating all this stuff and drinking all this stuff that I wasn't, that I was told was super unhealthy, like Coke and Fanta and eating prosciutto and pasta. Yet somehow I still lost 30 pounds. And so I've been on this journey for a little while, but where Ali and I connected a lot more was sharing not just our experiences of food, but more importantly, diving into like, hey, I've had to think differently on how I shop so I can eat better and actually, see my quality of life improve.
now, today is just an introduction to our podcast and talking about explaining what the topics are going to be in the future. But we could probably go on for hours and days and years, in fact, talking about all the problems that we're facing. Now, is the food service industry and our food programs broken? Yes, it is. Can it be fixed? I don't know. Even with Robert Kennedy trying to fix some of these problems, it seems like it'll take hundreds of years, in my eyes, to get this thing fixed, unless we take the corporations out of it, and that becomes political. So that's another end of it. You don't realize what you're eating and what you're buying unless these big corporations hands are in it. And unfortunately, they're involved in the farming of it. They're involved into Coke, Pepsi. They're involved into all the major food stores, Walmart. So the list goes on and on. So what are we eating? What is it they're telling you that we're eating? What is pasteurized? What is organic? What is a GMO? It just goes on and on and on. What is farm fishing? How do they raise cows? What is pasteurized chickens? And what is the FDA guidelines on it? And are they realistic? So Jake, I know you have a lot of insight on this, and we talked about this several times. So where do we start? Where do we want to go with this?
Well, I think the thing we've connected most about is just all the different resources. So obviously there's a lot of podcasts, a lot of books. So I think when we start with that, I think talking about some of those resources that got us having these conversations in the first place, will be a great start, because obviously we've talked about there's great food economies and there's bad food economies, and how the US kind of fares against those other food economies, and where those incentives are coming from really helps.
And I agree with you. I was in Ireland last year, and I seen their fisheries, fishmongers out there, and the type of fish they have versus what we have in the United States. In the United States, it seems like a fast food chain of fish. When you go out there to a restaurant or a supermarket, it's the same thing. It's the same tilapia, it's the same ahi tuna, the same salmon. But I'm hearing that they're using salmon glue. I hear that this stuff isn't real fish, and it's again GMO eggs, and so what is the truth out there? How do we know what to buy, where to go and buy it, where it's not affecting our bodies and how we eat? And that's everything that we're buying in the stores. It almost seems like we can't buy or eat anywhere. You can't go into restaurants. So that's where we want to talk about the real truth. Where is it going? What is right to buy? What isn't right to buy? And how do we treat our bodies? Because people eat for many different reasons. They eat for health reasons. They eat for food allergies. Some people eat because the classes that we're in, lower class, medium class, and upper class, what we can afford to eat, what we can't afford to eat. And, believe it or not, these corporations are putting selling us certain types of foods in the type of areas that we live in. So people may not understand that, but I've traveled across the United States, and I noticed that a lower class area, there's nothing but fast food chains in there, and chain restaurants and Subways and places like that where you're going to eat a cheaper type of food. And even the supermarkets have a cheaper type of food. You might see a number 2 or number 3 produce, and what people don't understand, there's levels of grades of produce out there that they sell. And you're going to go to an upper, grade, like a number 1 type vegetable at Whole Foods, and you're going to see the more of the organics. But then again, what is organic? Where's it coming from? Is it a GMO still? So you could break it down, but many people don't understand this, and they don't understand what they're buying. They just think this is organic, or they just think this is better quality, and then this other piece here. But again, I could have an apple that I buy from a store right now. I could leave it in my refrigerator. A month later, I come to get that apple, and it's still not rotten. You got to ask yourself why. It never happened like that when I was a kid. It would rot within a week.
I think the other part of that you're kind of hitting on is like, I think calling it what it is like, there's a lot of food fraud in the US that a lot of us aren't aware of. And then also things like food deserts. So like, it's not just any one thing. There's a lot of different things that are happening that we're less and less aware of, and we're getting more and more surrounded by. So it's not like you can just wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm just going to eat organic food and everything's going to be totally fine. Because, like the best example is you might be eating organic beef, but who really knows if, 2 generations ago of that cow, it wasn't organic, right? So it's just, what are we actually surrounded by, and how do we educate ourselves on what's happening? It's very similar, I feel like, to what we talk about in China, where it's like, oh, China's stealing patents and they're copying our products. And I know until some one of the books I was reading that we've talked about, like, I didn't even realize how much food fraud there was. It wasn't just like about fake Parmesan versus real Parmesan. It wasn't just about the fast food restaurants. It's like, okay, well, even of the options I have, like, how do I identify something that's authentic and real and worth paying for? It's going to like positively affect what I'm eating.
Well, I know that if you read on the back of ingredients lists, and they keep showing this, if you see that on Instagrams and YouTubes, that the ingredients list in some countries is 3 or 4 ingredients. Ours have 15 or 20, and I've seen it. I go to supermarkets and I stand in the aisles and I look at the ingredient lists, and you see all these names that you can't even pronounce. You see cellulose, you see phosphates, you see they have plastics and wood pulp and food starch. That's just the nice list. When you see all the preservatives, there's such a thing as something called cellulose. It's a curing salt. And when I was going to culinary school, you would make a force meat, like a bologna or a salami or something like that. And you put 2 tablespoons of this to every 100 pounds. If you ate it, it's pure poison, you die. It's like cyanide. But we put this in our food. It's a preservative. So you can go to everything from potato chips. And some potato chips, they say they fry in 3 different seed oils, which I have a hard understanding that you figure it's just one oil. So they're mixing the oils for whatever reason. And okay, so what's a good seed oil, or what's not a good seed oil? What's in them, what's not in them? But now I'm hearing that fake olive oil. So when you talk about food fraud, you go and the bottle of olive oil says olive oil. Now I know the difference of real pure Italian olive oil, and how it should taste and how fresh it is. Now, when you buy these olive oils, when you look at the back of the ingredient list, it says 100% olive oil. But from what I understand, it's a seed oil with chlorophyll in it. So you got to ask yourself, why are these companies getting away with this? When they tell you that there's no trans fat in margarine, but I look at the back, and when you do some research on the ingredients, it's trans fat. Now, how is it these companies can keep getting away with this? And I know that they're multi-billion, trillion-dollar food companies, and they're selling to us, and they're making record profits. But I always question, what is it we put into our body? I always make the analysis of the frozen pizza that you can buy in the freezer section, a whole 16-inch frozen pizza for $5. You got to say that supermarket has to make some money off that pizza. But there's the manufacturer that's manufacturing that, paying for labor, water, rent, human resources, the ingredients. It's not real cheese. It's not real bread. It's nothing real. And it's really bad for you that you're putting in your body. But how is it that they can manufacture that, pay for all the resources, sell it to a supermarket, and then supermarket make money off $5? To me, it's almost impossible unless they're making that pizza for 50 cents or 25 cents. That's the only way they're going to make money. So what do you put in your body? And that's that's just one example of many other things that we're eating now. And we're not eating real ice cream. We're not eating real, it's not being made with real milk or cream or eggs. What are they putting into these, all this food that we're eating?
I think one of the big things that we're kind of excited to explore is like how this all even started, right? Like, I still remember specifically when I worked for an agency early on in my career. I used to work with the video guy, and I remember we went into this bar after we'd been working, and we ended up sitting next to this guy. Somehow we started talking about GMOs, and this guy looks at us and he goes, "Well, not all GMOs are bad." And it turned into this big conversation, and he started letting us know a little bit more of the history behind it. He goes, "Look, like GMOs started because we needed to feed more people." And yes, a lot of the GMOs may be taking the nutrients out of it, but more people can eat. Isn't that a good thing? And then also like what percentage of GMOs weren't bad and why? And you start like looking at it, it's like, okay, well, the intentions might have been good, but have we overscaled into it? It's great that, we can get certain fruits and vegetables year round, but if it's losing the health benefits by giving us access, I guess it comes back to what Ali says all the time. Like, what are you eating for? Are you eating for nutrients? Are you eating for enjoyment? And what are the long-term effects on us as we're eating these things?
It's more like it's feeding more people, but it's killing more people. Again, growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we didn't see peaches and plums and cherries into the summer. And that was one thing that was so exciting. It was always great. I can't wait for peach season to come in, and I can't wait for cherries because we loved them. But it's to the point now, when I was growing up, again, we had watermelons with seeds, grapes with seed, oranges with seeds. That's the reproductive system. And I kind of hated it because we were always spitting seeds out the door, on the floor. We're spitting seeds all over the place. But now I miss it. I know it's needed. And, once you grow something in a GMO farm, you can never grow anything else but GMOs again. That place is contaminated. That's how bad it is for you. But this whole system got started back in the Nixon years when he was running for president. He wanted to give something to the people. So that's where he brought in processed foods. And that's where it started coming out more and more, because he wanted to make the economy and shopping and eating more affordable for people, especially for the average person. And then it just kept expanding from there and there and there.
What's funny though is even where processed food started, like I didn't know until recently that canned food, I think, started during the Napoleon era, because they're like, look, we need to give our military better food. And we start looking at the history of a lot of the processed foods that you're talking about. It's like even ramen, right? Like I didn't know. Another one I found out a few years ago was like the ramen packets you buy that everybody loves so much. Like those are, I hopefully don't say this wrong, I think it's Japanese era, like military grade food. And so here we are now all consuming massive amounts of like what's supposed to be like nuclear war type food, that's like meant like when there is no nutritional food around, but we're eating that over the regular good food.
You say that because Coca-Cola was, even though it was started, in the late 1800s, Coca-Cola expanded itself through World War II. Which American taxpayers paid for it, because Coke went to the United States of America and said, hey, we want to be able to give our soldiers out there that are fighting for our freedom something to drink on a discount. So I think they were selling it for a nickel bottle. So they basically set up distribution centers all over the world, except for Japan, obviously, and Germany. But again, processed food, you keep hearing it with military.
Yeah, actually, that's why it's even funnier is when you find out where Fanta comes from, where it's actually from Coke expanding into Germany and then trying to survive. It becomes Fanta, and Fanta was them trying to replicate some kind of version of Coke because it was a Coke company, and they're just taking like food scraps and stuff like that, putting it together, and then they're like, well, we got to make it look more appealing, so they made it like radioactive orange, and now, that's why Fanta is what it is today.
And that's one thing about this podcast that I'm happy to talk about is because there's so many stories behind food, stories behind pot stickers and moonshine and how it got its name. And that's one thing, as I said, we can talk for years and years on this. But the main point of all this is I want to break down chicken. I want people to understand what you're eating. Not only the counts of bacteria in chicken, it's not to scare you away, but it's to make you come with better choices, a better way to eat, source food. Honestly, the way I see it right now, the only better way for you to eat food is to grow yourself. And do you have the time? Do you not have the time? Do you have the resources? Do you know how to do it? Not know how to do it? Well, they had to figure it out for hundreds and hundreds of years. And they lived this way for hundreds of years. We've just gotten so materialistic now that it's so easy to stop off at the fast food restaurant and buy, a Happy Meal for your kids and just drop it off at home. And that was unheard of growing up. We ate almost, every day at home, 7 days a week. We were lucky, McDonald's was a treat. If we would get there once every 3 months, if lucky, or once a year. But now it's a way of life. That's what's killing us. And that's what we want to get into is, obesity, food waste. This food thing just keeps going on and on and on. It's not stopping. And, and we're not getting better at it. We're getting worse at it.
I think one thing that's also going to be really exciting is we'd love to bring on any experts. So, we know farmers, we know other different kinds of food specialists, even dietitians. So being able to talk about the science behind food along with the enjoyments of it, anything from talking to people who hunt and conservation, going back to, like I said, farmers. Because when you talk about chicken, the one thing that always freaks me out is spaghettified chicken. I learned what that was. And, I've literally actually started switching over more to and I know we're still exploring on a lot of this stuff, but more of a plant forward diet, because I feel like I shouldn't be eating so much chicken, because it's like, well, I want to eat a bunch of chicken to get more protein in my diet, trying to take more control of my health. But at the same time, the chicken I'm eating is just, I don't know how to describe it. There's always something off with it, right? Like I can't remember the last time I ate chicken where I wasn't freaked out thinking how it was different from the chicken that I used to eat. Cause it's like, oh, well, it's too big. And that there's all these different symptoms of the chicken that you're eating. It's like, it'd be nice to eat a little bit with a peace of mind, right? Like when you're buying a product, not worried about whether or not you're going to get a spaghettified chicken because the chicken grew too fast and that's why it's all stringy in the middle,
Yeah, you have to understand, and that's where I want to be able to educate our audiences, because I've been to certain supermarkets, and whether I want to eat that food or not, and I end up throwing it away anyways, but I've gone to Walmart, I've gone to these certain chain restaurants, from Stop and Shop to Albertsons and Safeways, and when you buy their frozen chicken pieces, even Costco, they have different textures. Some so bad that I know it's not chicken. I'm like, what am I eating? I cooked it. It just was water falling apart in my mouth. And I don't mean that it's juicy. It just did not taste like chicken. So I'm wondering, what are they preserving it with? They gas flushing it. Is it soaked in sodium and soaked in water and then frozen? So there's so many different ways that they're doing this, and they're raising their chickens. And is it even chicken? I'm hearing about this fake processed meat glue, again, fish glue, that they're gluing pieces of food together. Now, is this true or not? Well, obviously we're going through some changes and they're fabricating foods. I do know that chicken lasts longer now than it did before. When I was growing up, you had it in the refrigerator 2 or 3 days, it was rotten. 4 days, forget about it. You could smell up the whole refrigerator. You could have the chicken breast now in your refrigerator for 7 or 8 days, and it's still not going bad. And you got to ask yourself why. And these are the questions that we want to answer on this show, because it's very important for people to understand how to buy, brand names. Just because it says farm fresh, it's just a brand name. It doesn't mean that it's farm fresh. What kind of meat to buy? Are they bleaching the meat? Are they putting red food dye on it to make it last longer? Now, I do know that they're taking it out of the package in some cases, putting a new container and putting a new sell date. So you really have to be a scientist to be able to eat nowadays. And you have to really understand where to shop, how to shop. And you don't have this time. You don't have the time for research. And that's why you let the professionals teach you and help you understand to make better choices, because there's so many people that want to eat better out there, because not only becoming a diabetic in life, we're experiencing all these allergies. And I don't believe it's because you can't eat wheat. It's the stuff that we're putting in the wheat. It's the chemicals we're putting in the bread, ammonias, preservatives, because they want the bread to last a week or 2 weeks. And it's saddening that we're, adding all this per profit. It's all about profit. It's all about money, because we're not out feeding people anymore. It's almost like we're grain feeding cattle, and we're overfeeding. That's another thing. Just understanding how to portion your food, and not eat 2 pounds. People love to go out and see if we can get this big giant burrito and get a big giant steak and big plate of food, but it's not good for you. So how do we train? How do we teach?
Yeah, and that's why if anyone ever has questions too, definitely send them to us. Because like I said, as Ali's talked about, we're just trying to create more awareness, and this has all come up because of our conversations of like researching. So between Ali's experience and then just stuff that we're finding as we're looking deeper and deeper into stuff. So it's definitely not all hope is lost kind of case. It's just more of that as we create more awareness, maybe we can be part of that push to get rid of things like food deserts and bringing more access to food. Because I think the thing that we're seeing across every single thing that you try to buy is like it's overwhelming amount of information. But if we're all learning together and we're all voting with our dollar, those things will change. The companies are doing it because we're allowing them to, we're buying things that are letting them know that it's okay. So as we start pushing back more and we start to value the quality of food that we're eating, and we're paying more attention to the effects that our food is having on us and in our society, culture, all that kind of stuff, I think that's what this is all about. Is we want to be part of that voice that's helping all of us move in the right direction.
And I think the people are actually speaking up when you really think about it right now, because chain restaurants across the United States are closing down. Hundreds of Applebee's and TGI Fridays just shut down, I believe, all their stores. Subways are closing down. Many chain restaurants are starting to shut down. And what is that all about? It means that people are sick and tired of processed foods and these cheap foods. Now, fast casual started in the late 80s, but it just excelled from there and more so. And it's gotten to the point where, people can't afford labor. So that means they can't make food from scratch anymore. So they're buying more frozen foods, more fried foods, and putting on their menus. So when you go to a restaurant, you're buying something, it's fried chicken wings, it's fried egg rolls, it's fried cheese sticks, cheese curds, whatever they could just drop in the deep fryer. If the sauces are pre-made, if they can get a hollandaise sauce, they just open up a can and pour hot water in it. They're doing things out there and making frozen soups, and everyone goes, "Oh, this is a great soup," but it's a frozen soup. And the amount of sodium in these frozen canned soups or the canned soups and the frozen soups, you're talking about anywhere from 30 to 38% sodium. That's the stuff that's hurting us. Plus, again, preservatives. But people are actually getting tired of eating all this unhealthy food. But which way to go? Because they're telling you buying fresh vegetables now is not good for you. They're telling you spinach is not good for you. They're telling you that all these vegetables that you're buying are, self-colored, that when the red skin potatoes are spraying paint on them. You keep hearing about all the chemicals on the food, from the dirt to the GMOs to the pesticides. I went out there to a couple of the farms back east, a few years, and I went back to the farms up in California, up in Northern California, and I would walk these farms just to get behind the scenes. And some of them, they look natural, they looked like they were doing a great job, no pesticides. Some of them said, "We don't use pesticides, we're organic." And then I go and I walk a couple miles down, I see a big silo with chemicals, and it says flammable. So you have to ask yourself, learning the truth about it all, what they're telling us and what they're not doing. And again, the FDA may just say, okay, this may be considered a non-pesticide item. This might be an organic item, but you're allowed to put this much amount of chemicals into it before it's not non-organic, or you can advertise that. So what is the limit? What's the threshold?
I think that kind of feeds into maybe the easiest way to explain what we're exploring is is it worth it question. Is there a certain give and take that we're experiencing, as a culture that's trying to grow and fill a need, So like to your point is, I was just thinking about like, are there, is there a time when a pesticide is worth it? Is there something that, we should be doing, or is it no, like we should really be moving more toward the organic, more natural kind of way? And what does that look like? What do those changes look like? Because, just comparing it to other industries, Like we hear about oil all the time, if it was really that profitable for the entire country to shift toward renewable energy, why wouldn't the big oil companies have done it already? Well, like what's the reasoning behind that? I think we're going to find something very similar with food is like, even if we wanted to shift tomorrow, like what would that actually look like? And are we capable of making those big shifts, or what should we be expecting, and what kind of decisions can we be making to find that?
Well, isn't that depends on, you're humanitarian or you're per profit.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? Is it about money or is it about human nature and saving the human life? I mean, you have to ask yourself, you're going to think the billionaires and these rich corporations are never going to change or divert from the way they're making money. They're out of business. And the business is people. It's not food, it's people.
I think there is a question too, though, right? Is like, could the infrastructure change tomorrow? There's one, and I'm going to tell you, I haven't researched this yet, but I was watching Landman, and there's this one scene that's definitely gone around social media where this one like super lawyer lady who's very like, she understands everything that's going on and talk about renewable energy. And he starts walking through. He's like, if we wanted to get rid of oil tomorrow, it would take 30 years to build infrastructure to make up for that. Like, why I think that's an interesting question for food is, if it got to that point, how did it get so big? And did we even know, and then what does it actually take to actually get us off of it? Because this is where we're at right now. What does that look like? Because I think you're right. Obviously there's profit and all these other things involved. But the other question is, let's say there was a flip tomorrow and it's like, no, we're only going to do it this way. Like, what would that look like? Do we have the infrastructure to feed everyone? Because, if you're shipping, if most grocery stores are getting, food from farms that are 3 states away, like, could say Florida, where I'm from, would they be able to get all the foods that they need, even though they grow a bunch of them? Would they get all the foods that they need to, help people survive? Or have we really just divided ourselves up really that much?
Well, I don't think we're ready for that right now. And even if we were, we keep putting on sanctions onto other countries like Russia, for example, but we're not getting our wheat from them anymore. Where we're not getting half the stuff. Their stuff was a lot better and it was more organic over there than it was over here. So the minute we put the sanctions on, look at how it drove up prices and caused shortages.
Yeah.
So that just tells you right there, we have so much fake food. The fake Parmesan cheese that you see on the supermarket, on the shelves, and you see the grains from cereal, all this fake food, they're not using real grain and they're bleaching flour. I mean, they're all the chemicals and all the fake foods, potato chips. When you go to the supermarket, as you're going to the registers, what's there? What are they advertising? Candy, sodas, cereal, potato chips, everything that's bad for you. Syrup, there isn't any healthy food. I mean, why don't they, in front of the registers, ever put a stand of fruit? So when you're walking out, I'm going to grab a couple apples. Instead, I'm going to grab a couple candy bars. This crosses between obesity, money, because it's cheaper to make these processed foods that aren't real foods. And when you go down the aisles, it's just tons of processed canned foods, things that are not good for you to buy. And again, tons of seed oils. Where's the healthy section in a supermarket where it's really good? And again, even with the produce section, it's the same food over and over and over again year round. Growing up, and again, in the 70s and 80s, I would see seasonal market grocery stores. You would have butcher's shops. You would actually have the butchers cutting the meat there. It's rare to even find that anymore.
Well, and I think another thing that we definitely want to clarify is, obviously living in America, everybody wants the freedom of choice. And I think there's a difference between choosing to buy the candy bar and the fruit, which obviously, like, you do want to have both those options, but you also have a right to know what's in that candy bar. Like, it's one thing if you choose to eat candy bars every day. It's another thing if there's ingredients in those candy bars that you're not aware of that could be killing you. Like, let's say there was slipping, this is me being hyperbolic, but like, let's say there was slipping arsenic in the candy bar. Like, if you're eating a candy bar that has arsenic in it, like, that's not you really making a choice at the end of the day, right? And that's, like I said, I know that's a drastic example, but I think that is the bigger thing. And I say that because, like, even from a just buying authentic food standpoint, like, I've tried to buy what I thought was like real authentic mozzarella, only to find out that, like, or not mozzarella, it was, I don't know, some other cheese, but there was some kind of cheese I was trying to buy, and it's specific to a certain specific region of Europe, right? Because I wanted to buy this fancy cheese. Well, I buy it, I take it home, and I'm looking back really close to the package, and it just says Wisconsin, right? Like, made in Wisconsin, which is fine, but it's not why is it put in set up in a way and packaged in a way that made me believe that it was something that it wasn't? So you could argue, yes, well, it was in the fine print and it was there, but the reality is like, first of all, I spent more money on something than I intended. I get it, you can take it back, but the point is, like, people want a freedom of choice for sure, but they also don't want to be tricked, right? And they shouldn't have to think, like what you're saying, right? Why do we have to think so much about the food that we're buying? Why do I need to research and understand so much about every single piece of food I'm buying? Like, why can't I buy vegetables in an environment and be comfortable knowing that when I buy asparagus, there's like, if there's organic asparagus and regular asparagus, that should be good enough. I shouldn't have to like go in and research whether or not the organic asparagus is really organic and whether or not really should be charging that higher price, because it's, you know, maybe it's really not that much different from regular
Shouldn't
asparagus.
everything be organic these days? Should we be re-raising this? And you made a
Yeah.
great point. Are we making a choice, or are they making it for us?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like the glass half full, half empty. That's the kind of analogy you're choosing there, because, you know, it's subliminal messaging and marketing. You know, they market to you. You know, when you go to a McDonald's or a fast food chain, they would put the value meals years ago right in front of you. So you would go in there, you wouldn't even read the menu. I'm going to get value meal 1, 2, or 3, or 4. But those value meals were based off the higher profitability.
Yeah.
So the other items that they would like you to buy, but more likely the Big Mac and the French fry and the Coke, was a bigger profit margin for them. So that's what they stuck right in your face. There's so much of this marketing out there. And basically, these corporations are choosing for you. And you're going to say, no, I have my freedom of choice. I like this. Well, you don't think by having a Lay's potato chip contest for coming up with a new flavor doesn't get everyone to go to the supermarket and buy Lay's and try them and then think about their own flavors? So it's marketing towards the people to get them to buy and to eat more of that.
Yeah. It's actually funny too, because you had me thinking about when we're working on websites, one of the big questions we have kind of coming up, we had an argument over sticky headers, for example. And the question is, like, are there certain things that should always be right in front of your face? And the reason why I say that is, whether I'm thinking about the supermarket or a website, it all brings me back to, I think there's a scene in SNL where, like, I think Will Ferrell is like running a restaurant, right? And it's a Greek restaurant. So they got this funny joke where someone's like, oh, I'll have the octopus. And he's like, you have a lamb. You know, like, no matter what you're trying to order, it's like, well, you have, you know, you're going to eat this. And yeah, it's not that obvious, but that is kind of how the choices are starting to feel. Like, you know, you don't really get to choose whether, it feels like we have less and less of a choice. Like when we choose organic, is it, to your, like you were saying, is it really organic? I mean, I was listening to someone talking about in France the other day, they were talking about champagne and things like that. And they were talking about how hilarious it is that Americans have to label organic versus non-organic. They're like, exactly to your point, in most other countries that value food, they're like, organic is the default, you know? Like, and another funny scene, I know I'm throwing out a lot here, is we were watching 28 Days Later to go see the new show, and Brendan Gleeson's character is like going through the supermarket, and of course all the food is spoiled except for the apples at the very end. This is a movie made in like what, 2002 or something like that, and he's like, irradiated, because like that's the closest thing he's gonna get to fresh food now that the, you know, everything's kind of collapsed. But it's like the inverse now. It'd be like if they walked through our supermarket post-apocalypse, like all the food would be good, even the organic, you know, well, I should say, or we should question, would even the organic food still be good? Because it's like, oh, what did they do to it that it's still good right now?
And then you got to ask yourself where you're going in the future while you bring that up, because, you know, I just came from one of the Chicago's National Food Show, and this was the first time I've seen this in a long time, but it was based off AI. So all the cooking resources, the pizza vending machine, cookie vending machines, they have machines made to basically take over the entire restaurant industry, and that's where they're focused on. And then you got to ask yourself, and I believe that we should be fair, but I believe in buying America first for the United States and fixing our problems here. But there were so many Chinese companies at the food show, which I've never seen before in my life. Now, I know China owns a lot of top notch food companies out here. I'm not going to mention who they are right now, but they run a lot of our food system. They own a lot of farmland. Now, they're starting to take over the restaurant food show. So they're paper products, and they've been sending paper products over here for years. But when you're talking about tariffs and trade problems, around the world. But right now, just a month ago at the Chicago Food Show, many Chinese corporations were in there. So how difficult, and is it just to scare us? What is really going on if these, other countries are coming in here and selling to us when they're trying to make it play off that, okay, it's going to be more expensive, because basically they're in here to show us that it's still a lot cheaper, even with the tariffs. So that's where I want to break it down. Where are we getting our products from too also? Is it 100% from the United States? Is it from our farmland? Are we subcontracting out to other countries? And a lot of people don't know this. I do know that during the winter times, we are buying, certain berries from Australia, New Zealand. We're buying melons from, Central America. So you got to ask yourself, nowadays with GMOs, are we buying from other countries? We used to help those countries survive, actually, the poor countries. So where are we farming at? And, what are they doing now that they're not selling to the United States? Thank you for joining us. We'll have a set topic for, we're trying to be pulling this out probably every 2 weeks, and we'll have a really deep dive topic to talk about on the next podcast, so we can focus in on that. So thank you for joining us. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.